Welcome back to the Lipoedema podcast. My name is Tiana and I am one of your co-hosts of the Lipoedema podcast. If you are watching this on YouTube or on Spotify video, you might notice that Shell, the creator of the Lipoedema podcast and my esteemed co-host, is not with me. I am doing a solo episode today and I wanted to cover my postpartum journey with lipoedema so far. If you are not interested in knowing about my experience with pregnancy and lipoedema, then please, it's no dramas. I just know that I've been getting quite a few questions and a lot of women who are still in their childbearing years and thinking about becoming mums or having a second or third pregnancy have questions about how they might be able to navigate their lipoedema and whether it's a sure thing that it progresses or not. So this is my experience postpartum from my second pregnancy and birth of my third child, Nova. A little bit of background. I have twin daughters who are almost 8 years old. So it's been quite a long time since I have been pregnant. And my newest little arrival, Nova, is 6 months old currently. So I have had a 6-month postpartum journey so far. And it's probably important to sort of state that I didn't know I had lipoedema when I was pregnant with my twins and after my twins' pregnancy. And looking back at photos, I think I was still probably stage 1 throughout my postpartum journey with my twins. So I did have the column-shaped legs, but I had a lot of lifestyle fat that was removed with a lot of effort and some medical assistance postpartum with my twins. And I managed to get down to sort of the smallest I've been in my adult size with that intervention. And of course it didn't stay that way. I got down to, I think, 68 kilos and I'd never been that in my adult life. And then I sort of stabilized at about 72 kilos for quite a while until lipoedema started to progress. And that was with some hormonal changes due to a virus and hypothyroidism that followed the recovery of that virus. So that's when I sort of recognized that my body was getting larger without anything different happening from me in terms of my lifestyle. So then, almost 8 years went by and I became pregnant with little Nova, who was a surprise pregnancy. And I was really, really worried because I knew about lipoedema. I'd already had 2 leg surgeries on my lower legs and my upper legs before I became pregnant. And I was in this really brief state of celebrating my new body. And then I got pregnant and I thought, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can do this because I knew what it meant, what it could possibly mean for my body. And I was really worried. Anyway, little Nova's an absolute blessing. And it's been really, really interesting what has occurred post. And I've just got a few notes here. So sorry if I'm looking down, I'm just looking at my notes. But I had Nova in late September 2024. And she was born the day after her due date. And the week before I gave birth to Nova, I was 86 kilos the week before I gave birth to Nova. So I had put on maybe like 9 kilos of pregnancy weight, which I think is incredibly healthy. I felt really good. I didn't feel super inflamed, considering a lot of my conservative measures sort of went out the window throughout the pregnancy. So, for example, I wasn't able to wear compression every day. I had 1 pair of maternity compression stockings from Medi, which were very comfortable, but it was 1 pair, so I sort of had to rotate the use of those and the washing. I wasn't able to get in my lymphopress because I was told by the Queensland vet that as soon as I started showing my pregnancy belly, I couldn't compress that part, so I had to stop the lymphopress. I was quite sick in the first trimester with morning sickness, and I ended up having prolonged food aversions and cooking aversions for a long time throughout my pregnancy. So diet was really tricky, but with all of that considered, the way my body looked when I was pregnant, I didn't feel like my lipedema was progressing, and my weight certainly didn't skyrocket through the pregnancy. So I was feeling pretty confident with that and pretty happy with that. And then little Nova came along in September, and I was really excited to try and establish breastfeeding. Now, I tried to establish breastfeeding with my twins back almost 8 years ago, and I dealt with low supply. And I tried the medication that they give you, but I had a lot of support to navigate my way through and away from breastfeeding after the first 3 months. Because there was 2 of them, and like with low supply, I thought, if it was only one baby, I probably could have been successful. So I had a mindset with Nova that I would be successful this time with establishing breastfeeding and not having to top up with formula, because my body would just do it because it had done it before, and I was really excited to do that. So I made every effort that I could to establish breastfeeding. It turns out that I still had low supply, but I was determined and sort of had a bit of tunnel vision in terms of wanting to breastfeed my child. So I went back on the medication, and then I was looking up things to help me increase my supply. And a lot of different conversations were coming up, things like oats and oat milk, Gatorade, specifically the blue Gatorade, making sure you're eating enough calories. So my lactation consultant said, have a massive drink of water and a snack when you get up to feed overnight. So I was eating all night. I mean, the newborn phase, it's every 2 hours you have to feed, like wake them up and feed your child. So I was eating in a window that I haven't experienced for almost a decade. So I used to eat 16:8, 19:5, something like that regularly. And then I went to eating around the clock and eating foods and drinks specifically that I would never really touch nor be interested in, like oat milk and Gatorade, and eating like things made with oats and grains and stuff that I wouldn't really have a lot of. So with that tunnel vision and just trying to do everything I could to increase my supply, it increased by about 20 mil, which was still not enough to sustain Nova. And I had to give formula top-ups as well. But I was still putting in the effort to try and increase my supply and latch on and everything. And that went through until she was almost 4 months old. So I lasted longer than I did with the twins breastfeeding, but I had to top her up like I did with the twins. And I'm just looking at my weight. So when I gave birth to Nova, my postpartum weight straight after birth was 77 kilos. And then in October, November, it went up by 2 kilos. November, December, it went up by 3 kilos. Sorry, it went up by 4 kilos. December and January, it went up by another 3 kilos. And by February, I was 88 kilos. And when I went to the doctor, I was 89 kilos on their scales. And I hadn't seen scale weight like that on my body since I was pregnant with the twins. When I was pregnant with the twins, I was almost 90 kilos, but I was pregnant, and that's a substantial gain for postpartum over 4 months. And I was devastated. I really was. And I'm not blaming my lipedema completely. I can tell on my body that it is lifestyle weight as well, and the lipedema has progressed because of the lifestyle weight, specifically in my arms. Because I've had surgery on my legs seem to be not too bad. They get inflamed, and I do have like wobblier legs because I wasn't doing a lot of strength work. My activity went down. So I was 88, 89 kilos, almost 89 kilos, and I thought I need to do something drastic here, because if I sit at this weight, my lipedema could progress even more. So I have been on a targeted weight loss journey, knowing in my mind that some of the lipedema progression may not go back to the way it was, but I wanted to focus on what I could control. And I've said it on the podcast before that I've used Duramine. Phentermine is the drug. Duramine is the label, I suppose. But I've used phentermine in the past. I used it postpartum after the twins. And that's when I got down to the lowest weight I've ever gotten, which was not sustainable. But I managed to keep off a significant amount of weight and get to a place where I was happy for, years. So much to my dismay, I started a Duramine journey again. And not only that, I've also been tracking my calories. So I've been in a calorie deficit and I've been focusing on high protein. So I'm aiming for about 140 grams of protein a day. And that I found that to be so difficult. And that's not even, with the weight at 89 kilos, I should have been striving for more protein a day, honestly. And it's amazing when you track your calories and your macros, and I'm using MyFitnessPal, how difficult it is to reach your goals with calories and the protein intake. So I just wanted to share my experience with you about what I've been doing. I am 84 kilos now. So I started Duramine in March, the beginning of March, actually the 1st of March. I have taken 2 Duramine breaks. The first one was during the cyclone in Queensland, and I took a 3-day break. And the second one was most recently, I went on a cruise with my family for a bit of a holiday before I go back to work, and I didn't take my Duramine, and most definitely would have increased my calories. And I thought, for a week or for 3 days, it's not going to harm me, and it's actually going to do my metabolism a lot of good to make sure it's not sort of recalibrating down to the lower calories. And I wasn't aiming in those times. It's also those 2 diet breaks, if you will, were when I was in my luteal phase of my menstrual cycle. So that was really opportunistic as well, because I struggle with PMS and I wanted to be a bit more gentler on my body by not taking this really harsh drug that sort of ramps everything up and makes everything stressful for, a short period of time, and then get back on the wagon after when I'm back in, not in my luteal phase. I have taken 32 tablets all up since the 1st of March, 1 a day with a few breaks, and I've gone down just over 4 kilos. And I'm feeling good about the progress because it's not drastic, which means I hope it's going to be more sustainable compared to the last postpartum experience with phentermine, where it was really drastic, really quick, and I got really small, and then I sort of balanced out a little bit at the end. But when you see that small number on the scale, God, you crave it. You really crave it. I'd really love to see that number again, but I don't think I ever will. And I need to be okay with that. I wanted to talk into tracking my calories and my macros because I found it super interesting. What I thought when I was focusing on protein and, quote unquote, lower carb, like choosing a salad over a sandwich or even a wrap, it was not high protein and it was not low carb. It was just somewhere in the middle. And so I've had to make really pointed food swaps of certain things that I eat to make sure I'm maximizing my protein intake. And there's a couple of swaps that I've made that I'm going to keep. The first one is, during my pregnancy, I would have bacon and eggs on toast for breakfast. And I thought that was a great start to the day, especially for someone who wasn't eating breakfast before I got pregnant because I was intermittent fasting. But it turns out it's not, enough protein, and I didn't care about the carb level really, but it wasn't enough protein in the morning. So I've switched from my grainy bread from Coles to the protein bread from Aldi. And I believe it's 12 grams of protein per slice. Don't quote me on this. Yeah, I think it's about 12 grams of protein per slice. And so that sort of contributes to the higher protein in the morning. I also had a look at, I like yogurt, especially Greek yogurt. That's naturally high in protein. My kids like this sweetened yogurt that we get from the markets. Very great quality yogurt. But I found that if I buy the high protein, lower fat yogurt again from Aldi, And then I only put like a little scoop of the sweet yogurt, the mango yogurt or whatever one I get for the kids from the market, to just give it a little bit of something. That also increases my protein intake through the day. I do supplement with protein shakes. I like the bulk nutrients Future Whey. Usually I like the lemonade flavor. I should also preface this with, like, I'm not getting sponsored by any of these companies. I'm just telling you what has worked for me and the brands that I'm comfortable buying. So I buy Bulk Nutrients Future Whey, which is like a protein water, and I think it's amino acids. So a lot of protein water is collagen based, and you know, some of the really expensive ones are whey based, and I don't know how they do that, but they make a whey based protein water. Blows my mind, science. But this one is, you know, the amino acid blend, which is sort of in the middle of like ideal, because I get all the amino acids that I need, like a complete protein, but it's in like a water, because the creamy proteins, like I just don't want to start my day, or I just not a fan of the creamy protein sometimes. I like the Future Whey from Bulk Nutrients. And I recently restocked that and got the other flavors, the pineapple and the berry. And I opened up the berry, and I don't like the berry. It tastes like medicine. So, but I've opened it up, so I'm going to eat it, drink it, because I'm stubborn and I'm not going to waste money. So anyway, I've got the berry Future Whey at the moment. And I also bought speaking about not liking creamy proteins, I bought the Macro Mike sample box so that I could trial some of their plant-based protein. Not that I was wanting plant-based, it was just that it was on special and I was influenced on social media because the ad came up. They're quite yummy, but it's really sweet, and I'm not used to drinking my calories. I am a water black coffee girl, sparkling water, and if I want any sort of flavor, I would just put some apple cider vinegar in my sparkling water. I don't have soft drinks, I don't drink milkshakes or thick shakes, or I'll have a smoothie once in a blue moon, but I'm a water girl. So having a protein shake that's like feels like dessert or soft drink is it's a lot for my taste buds, I suppose. So, they're yummy, but it tastes like dessert. And sometimes most of the time I want something savory, because I tend to have a sweet tooth, but for things that I can eat, not drink, like cakes and biscuits and that sort of thing. And what Duramind has allowed me to do is to quiet down the food noise and the food stress and allow me to take my time and track everything, because I'm not like panicking about food. I'm like, I should eat now because I'm feeling a little bit off, or I feel a little bit high. And I found that those feelings that I hated so much last time I used Fentanine, the feeling off and the feeling high, were because I just wasn't eating enough. I find that if I nourish my body enough, I don't feel those intense high feelings that I did last time. So it's been really good. Also, I'm a 1 a day coffee drinker usually. And I was drinking coffee when I was on Fentamine last postpartum, and that contributed significantly to the terrible feelings I had, the jitteriness, the anxiety, the heart like feeling really high. So I've stopped drinking coffee and I feel almost normal just without that food noise, which has been really good. So I sort of have worked it out to not be so unpleasant, because it really was unpleasant. And I promised myself I would never go back there, but here I am in desperation, I suppose. So I've tried to make some smart swaps so that I can reach my protein goal. What I'm finding is I'm struggling to reach my calorie goal. I can eat to just over 2,000 calories a day. That's my goal. And I'm sort of teetering on 1,700 because I'm obsessed with getting enough protein and not blowing out my calories. And I've been really struggling with tracking both of those things simultaneously, because if I choose a food that has, protein and fat, protein, carbs and fat, there's nothing wrong with that if it fits within my calories, but my brain says, well, that's not enough protein. I need more protein. And so it became a bit of a drag. And the swaps that I made taste wise don't allow me to enjoy food like I used to. And I'm just wondering whether it's a transition period and my taste buds will get used to it, or whether it's something that I can cycle in and out of. So what I started to do is on the days that I would do my Mums and Bubs fitness session, which is an hour, and like I love it so much, I go really hard twice a week. Those mornings I'll have my usual yummy toast that I like, with the same toppings, the cottage cheese and the banana, or the cottage cheese and the tomato with salt and pepper. And then on the days that I wasn't doing that intense exercise, I would have the higher protein, lower carb option, bread. And similarly with the yogurt, because the protein yogurt is super tart, and I like tart yogurt, but this one has just it's not the best flavor, I must admit. And I've tried it with, fruits and berries and stuff, and it helps, but it's a lot of this tart flavor. So I dull it down with some of the other yogurt from the markets. But I do the same thing. So on the days that I needed more calories to allow for those really hard hour workouts, I would allow myself to have a bit more of the foods that actually taste better, in my opinion. But I'm still really tormented by tracking both my calories and reaching my protein goal. So it's a learning progress, and I never thought I would be tracking my calories again, but I think it's been a useful tool for me to remember and be conscious about what I'm eating, because naturally when you track, you're more mindful, so you don't do that mindless eating. And I'm sort of prone to mindlessly eat, especially if I'm bored. And a lot of having a newborn and having a baby is being stuck at home, waiting for their feed time, waiting for their sleep time, accommodating them. And so there's a lot of downtime where you sort of feel a bit stuck. And that's where I would grab a snack. And the phentermine is helping me, first of all, not feel like I need to do that. And the tracking is helping me make myself accountable to those, because they are calories. So it's been really useful. I don't know how long I will continue this postpartum weight loss journey. I don't know how long it's going to take for me to fit back into my wardrobe. I would hope that I only need to do it for another month or so. But then the next phase is maintenance. And I must admit, I'm in a different phase of my life, being 38 years old, getting closer to 40, getting closer to that perimenopause type situation. My body is not going to respond like it did when I was 30 and younger. So I need to re-educate myself on what maintenance looks like for me. If I'm going to try, and I really, really want to try, to maintain a body that I'm happy with and try to avoid further weight gain, which will lead to further lipedema progression. I failed to mention that I've re-implemented a lot of my conservative management strategies. I've started, because my daughter, thank God, is mostly sleeping through the night, except for the past month she's gone through a sleep regression, but before then, she was a good sleeper. From about 3 months, I think, she was sleeping through the night. Brilliant. So grateful. I re-implemented the lymphopress at nighttime, and I turned my alarm on in the morning to wake up early before my kids and to do some sort of movement, even if it's just the vibration plate and dry brushing, or like a diastasis recti, because I have abdominal separation and I'm still rehabbing that. So some form of movement. This morning I did a strength workout, but I was feeling up to it. Some days I don't feel up to it. Some days, Nova's had a bad night, or I've had a bad night's sleep. Sometimes we wake up at midnight and we can't go back to sleep, and that's what it is. So I'm just trying to do something in the morning, and the default is the vibration plate and the dry brushing. I haven't gotten back into compression garments for any length of time yet. I don't fit into my compression garments at the moment. I would still need to lose about 6 kilos, I think, before I get into my clothes. I have about 2.5-inch gap on my pants to do up. So I'm really, really hoping that I can get there. But the scale, it's really hard for me not to put a lot of emphasis in the scale and to concentrate more on my clothes, because the scale is something that I can easily just pop on every morning. And I was scrolling through social media one day and I saw this reel, and this woman said, I want to be the heaviest person of my size that I can possibly be. And I thought, that's really smart for us women. You know, I want to fit into my wardrobe, which is size 12. Let's say flat size 12. There's a couple of size 10s in there, a couple of 14s if I want loose fitting, but it's about size 12. It would be smart for me to want to and to strive to be the heaviest size 12 I can be, because the heavier I am, that still fits into that size 12, has more muscle. And muscle is longevity, and muscle is energy, and muscle is healthy metabolism, and all of those things. So I'm really trying to remember, though I am getting on the scales every day, that it's just a number and it's not the full picture of my progress. I'm not sure how I should end this podcast episode. I sort of pressed record and just wanted to see what came out. If you have any questions about my postpartum journey, please get in touch. I'm more than happy to share. I've been a bit quiet on my social media because I've struggled to find the time to put my thoughts together in a creative way that Instagram will like. So I feel like this has been much easier for me to just come on and babble. And it's ongoing. Like, I'm not where I want to be yet, and I hope where I want to be is not far away, and I hope that once I get there, I can maintain that. And that's the next part of my journey. And it's not going to be easy to maintain, but I'm a hard worker and I want to believe that I can do this. So phentermine has been a really good tool, but I'm not resting on my laurels and getting the phentermine to do all the work. I'm tracking, I'm exercising, I'm building my strength. And I love that phentermine is giving me that kick of energy to like support me through that, especially with like activity during the day, exercising, because I am tired. Having a baby and 2 other kids is tiring. So I'm trying to juggle it and I'm doing the best I can. And so far, 4 kilos is progress. 4 kilos in 6 weeks is progress. So I can't wait to see what else happens. And if this episode is interesting to you, I'm happy to do a follow-up. And if you've just sort of skipped through it, I totally understand. This is not everyone's cup of tea. For those of you who are planning on getting pregnant, who are already pregnant, who are postpartum themselves, I see you. I wish for you to get some peace and give yourself some grace. It is so hard. It is so hard to be pregnant and to be postpartum and to think about lipedema on top of all of that. And just find as much time as you possibly can to focus on your wellness, high protein, strength training, and just take care of you. I suppose I'm going to sign off now. Thank you so much for listening. Until our next episode, my name is Tiana and I'm Miss Shelley, the other co-host of the Lipoedema podcast, and we will see you next time.
The Lipoedema Podcast 2025 is powered by Elegance Lymphatic Care. Lipoedema and its symptoms vary from individual to individual. The opinions and advice voiced in this podcast are of a personal nature and used for educational purposes.
Please take away from this podcast what resonates with you, and please see your GP or preferred specialist for diagnosis and healthcare. We are Shelley and Tiana from the Lipoedema podcast. Until our next episode, bye for now.